Hi, and welcome to RealClearFetish Talks RealClearPlay, a podcast that dives into sobriety, kink, and everything in between. This is the final episode of the season, so I've just a little bit extra today, just for your viewing pleasure. And this week, again, we're on the couch, which makes it so much easier to edit stuff. But this week, I have a very, very special guest with me, and it's my friend Nick. Hi, Nick.
Hey, Ralph.
How are you?
I'm very well.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And you're looking very stunning today.
I try. And you have your legs out. So something for the people to look at your legs. So with every episode I do 4 standard questions at the start, and then we'll just see where the conversation goes.
Sure.
To start with, names, pronouns, and title.
My name's Nick Guerreri. That's it. I don't use any pronouns. But...
Well, what we say behind your back.
Be him.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I'm American, originally from Buffalo, New York. I came to the UK in 1985 to study. I really liked it. And I came back in 86 after I finished my degree to live. And I've been here ever since.
And you love being in the UK then?
Yes, I do.
Completely sober, clear-headed, or social drinker?
No, completely sober. In fact, I'm actually 10 years sober.
Oh, fantastic. Congratulations.
Yeah. From alcohol and from drugs.
That is that's an achievement.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we started doing recovery together when you were 2 years and I was fresh out of a relapse. Yeah. But we'll get into that. What is ClearPlay to you and why is it important?
Fetish used to be, for me anyway, it used to be part of my drug days. It's very strange because I never used to think I liked anything fetish or anything leather. Of course, we had the coal hair in Earl's Court, so I live in Earl's Court. When I moved there in 1987, there was lots of gay bars. It was the gay area of London. And the coal hair was the leather bar. And I, maybe in my youth, I was always scared of that place. It was very different from what I was used to. So I was never really into leather. And I was thinking this on the way here, that with some of my clubbing friends, and my one Swiss friend, Marcus, said to me one time, he says, "Oh, why don't you come with me to Fist?" I was like, "Oh, it's all leather." And he's like, "Yeah, it's so much fun. It's a good group of guys and everyone's there just to have fun. You dance." And I said, "But I don't have anything to wear." And I think he lent me his harness. And and I went, and actually I did have a good time. We just danced, Yeah, we were high, but it was nice, actually. And it sort of opened up this whole new world for me because I started going, I suppose, regularly after that.
It's interesting when you mention the Colhern. For anyone listening, the Colhern used to be like the it club when it came to at least fetish gear and so on. So you say you weren't really into it, but then you kind of were you already using drugs before then?
Yeah, so I was using drugs. So I started using, when I came to this country, the first drug I ever took was acid. And then in 1987, I think when ecstasy came out, we had some house parties. So I did ecstasy just a couple of times at house parties, and didn't really take any other drugs until after my partner died of AIDS. That was in 93. And after years of depression, I think someone took me to DTPM, and that was in 1997. And I took an ecstasy in a club, and that was the first time I took ecstasy in a club. And it was a whole different experience, and I thought, what have I been doing for all those years of being depressed after losing my partner? It opened up this whole new world. There was all these beautiful people, fantastic music, and I just started clubbing from then. Brought my flatmates, brought all my other friends, and it started from there.
So when did you feel, let's just go back to the question, actually, because one of the things I asked was, what is ClearPlay to you and why is it important?
Yeah, sorry, I got off in a tangent.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. That's fine. Could you elaborate on that question?
So for me now, being sober, so when I was trying to get sober, I was seeing a psychologist, and I said to him, I have drugs and sex, chemsex basically, and I can't break this habit. And he basically said to me, the more times you try sober sex, those pathways will get ingrained in your brain, because right now it's wired for drugs and sex, and that is giving you the pleasure. But the only way to break that is to grow these new pathways by having more and more sober sex. So I went home, and I don't know, a week or so later, I had first sober sex experience, which lasted all of 1 minute. You know,
Sounds about right.
shot my load. That was it. And the guy was horrified. So I was just like, well, that's not very fulfilling. So, but it took a while to have sober sex, and as I was exploring sober sex, I still had all my leather gear. So I used to, in my using days, I lay out all my leather gear on the table. I'd take a picture, I'd send it on the apps, and this is what I've got. We can use, blah, blah, blah. And like to get dressed up, for however long it lasted till it came off.
Mm.
And so I tried to do that sober. I thought that's the kind of guys I needed to connect with. And it just didn't, for some reason, and I don't know the reason why, it didn't really feel right to me. So I started having sober sex without any gear, leather gear. And I've been in a relationship now, it's coming up to 8 years. And he's never done drugs, never done anything leather scene, nothing like that. So I never even explored any of that with him. For me now, when I do have sex, for me, I just want other things. I suppose because I'm in a relationship, I just want cuddles, kisses, and that sort of loving sort of thing rather than, yeah, this fantasy sex. And I don't know what it is. I mean, I'm 61. Perhaps my whole sexual appetite has changed because, and I said this to another friend, a friend in recovery who's nearly my age, and I don't think about sex so much anymore. Whereas I could remember I couldn't get through a day without scrolling through an app or thinking about sex or planning my next sexual encounter. And now it's not, there's other things in my life. My life is so fulfilling, whereas sex is taking a back seat. Coming back to the question, my play now is I don't have any desire to use leather gear in my play. If I do play. And then it's just, I don't know if that's just an evolution. My age, I go through different stages in my life, whereas I started off, vanilla sex and then getting more and more kinky as I got older, trying new things where it got to drugs and then leather and trying absolutely everything. It's not in my life anymore, but I don't, to each is their own. I mean, a lot of people still like it. It's amazing that, guys that used to be addicted to chemsex, if they can still do all their fetish like you do, and go to clubs sober and do that. And there are opportunities to do that in London. And I think it's fantastic because out there now, it's getting more and more scary with the apps, the amount of crime that's being committed, and the amount of people that are dying. It's just really, really sad, Ralph. It's just really sad. And I worry about all the young guys out there, that haven't really explored it, or they're new to London and they want to meet people. And that's the way they get introduced to it all, is this chemsex on the apps.
Now that I live in, I would say, the Chemsex triangle here in London. You kind of have Oval, Vauxhall, and then Brixton, and it's mind blowing. It's like you're sitting there I work from home most of the times, and I get like a message at Tuesday at 8 a.m.
Yes.
And I'm just like, mate, I'm working.
That used to be me sending those messages.
No, I used to be me as well. I've called in sick to work where it was like I'm literally mid in the session and I'm talking to my boss on the phone. It's like I'm a little bit sick. I can't come in, and I have someone sucking my dick off at the same time. So it's definitely not said as a judgment thing. It's just quite eye opening when you're sober. But also, like, one of my reasons I wanted to have you on is because we are quite connected when it comes to my recovery. You were the first one who helped me. You were the first one I reached out to when I was really struggling. But also from the aspect of you've gotten to a point in your life where lever and fetish and so on it's not a part of your life anymore. And it's one of the things I haven't touched on, because one of the things when I became sober was I was very stubborn. I want to get back to my fetish life. I want to actually enjoy it again. But then again, there is also a section of people who really enjoyed it and then became sober and it's like, do you know what? This is not a part of me anymore. This is not what I want to do anymore. And
That's what
that,
you found, because I haven't really talked to anyone about that.
mm,
But have you found that with people that they become sober and then they don't want to continue to explore that?
there is definitely a subsection of
Probably,
people
yeah,
where
subset,
it's
yeah.
become so problematic that
Oh, I
they,
see, because they associate that
yeah,
with the drugs.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay, then you'd
and
have to
and
cut that. Yeah.
yeah, and that's where like it's an interesting topic to talk on, because when something you've enjoyed, and my impression is you enjoyed
I did
it,
enjoy it, yeah. Hmm.
but now it's just like you describe putting the lever out on your table, and it's like, this doesn't give me the same thrill. Do you think that's because it was more connected with the drug taking and then the thrill of having someone over to dress up whilst you were high?
Yeah, I used to think it would lure the kind of guys that I thought I'd have great, amazing sex with.
Mm.
The guys that were into this leather, into sort of more different fetishes type thing. Because as I said, drugs allowed me to explore all sorts of different fetishes and all sorts of different scenarios, some dom sub scenarios, all that sort of thing. And it was just putting it on sober, and all I wanted to do was just touch the guy's body and just more have sex in a more romantic, connected way. Because for me, chemsex with the leather, you take the crystal meth, or the methadone and the G, and well, everything basically, and
The
you might
alphabet.
be you get that high, that for that maybe 10 minutes, you might have a tiny bit of connection
Mm.
because you're both going at it intensely, and then boom, they get on their phone, they're looking for more, they're on the app. You know what I mean? It used to be so. It became quite frustrating, for me. But as I said, doing it sober, it just didn't work for me. I mean, it wasn't that I used leather with drugs, yes,
Mm.
but when I became sober, I didn't want to do the drugs anymore, and the leather just didn't fit in for me. It just didn't fit in with having sober sex,
Yeah,
and
with,
that's just me. I mean,
yeah, you kind of like you mentioned, you kind of have chapters in your life. I definitely have chapters in my life where a specific fetish features more. Where my story was like, because it was so connected to my fetish, like wearing leather was a trigger. I had to really work on getting the right pathways back and actually enjoy having this on, instead of putting it on and knowing, oh, what am I going to do next?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
And
get
that
that.
can be really tricky. And I know there is probably quite a big section where it's a massive issue, and you kind of just want to really engage with this fetish life. One of the things I always kind of ask someone when they're in early recovery and they want to do kink, I'm just like, okay, did you do kink before you touch drugs, or did you do kink whilst on drugs?
Mhm.
Because then it's about figuring out what is actually you and what
Yeah,
was the
yeah,
drugs.
exactly. If had I explored a leather club sober before I did drugs, I don't know. You know, at that point in my life, say I think it was probably my late 30s that I went to the first leather club. Had I been sober and done that, who knows if I
Mm.
would enjoyed it as much. I always had the impression, maybe it's totally naive of me, when I used to see guys at the cold hair, because they always used to be loitering, cruising outside, right?
Mm.
And I used to go to Brompton's, which was kind of right there too, and so you'd see the guys from the cold hair, and especially in the summertime, they all be out. And I always, for me, coming to London in the 80s, it was leather guys were very clones, right?
Mm.
So clones were a big thing. And I had a flat. I think there was 11 of us in this flat. I don't know how many bedrooms it was. It was a student dive. And there was one guy from Australia. He was a clone leather guy, right? He was a sweet guy, yeah.
Mm.
But I just used to associate, in my mind back then, I used to think leather guys are not my type, right?
Mm.
Until, in my late 30s, when I went to that leather club, and I was just like, oh my God, there's hot guys in leather. And it turned me on.
Mm.
It did. I have to say that. And I ended up, building up a little bit of a leather collection. It wasn't much. I had two harnesses, restraints, and paddles, and
I still have some of your
Yeah,
leather
I gave
gear.
it to Ralph. I was like, here, Ralph, I don't need it anymore.
Yeah, I benefited
And
from you giving it up.
I have some more sports socks at home. So
Yeah, you know where I live now.
football socks of different colors. Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm sure you can use.
Well, I just showed Nick. I have a pair of rubber shorts. They're not the original rubber shorts he gave to me, but my ex partner makes rubber, and he took the little brand that was in the back of the shorts and put it in the new one, so they're exactly the same.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful. I got some fun out of it.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
used to. Yeah, that was the first bit of leather I tried on. Yeah,
So
or
when
sorry, rubber that I tried on.
yeah, yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
not leather. Yeah.
So when did you get introduced to drugs the first time?
So as I told you, it was my first flatmates when I came to London. It
Mm.
was the acid, and then when ecstasy came out, we had house parties with gay and straight people, girls, and actually the first time I did ecstasy, always liked to throw a big dinner party. So I cooked this big dinner party, and no one was eating food because everyone took an ecstasy. And I was getting really frustrated, and I wasn't feeling any of this ecstasy, right? And this is when ecstasies were good. I think it was 20, 30 pounds a tablet. You only needed half, and it was full of MDMA, and it was all lovey-dovey. Anyway, this girl's like, "Oh, Nick, come over to me," and she started touching me, and I started touching her. I said, "Oh, this feels nice," you know. And then I was actually touching her tits, and I was like, "Oh my God, Nick, you haven't done this in years," you know. So all my friends were like, "Nick, Francine, he's gay. Nick, stop this." And I was like, "Let's just go in my room." So I went in my room, and I had to share the room where there was two single beds. There was another guy in the room with another guy. The other guy kind of freaked out because it was me and Francine getting naked, and this guy joined in. So it was all night long. Me and this guy took turns with this girl, who was very beautiful.
Wow. I did not know you
Yeah,
dabbled.
and that was my first experience in ecstasy. I didn't really do anything with the guy. We kind of just took turns on this girl. And then I
Okay.
had to go to work the next morning, and the bedroom was covered in condoms.
Well, at least you were
Yes, at
safe.
least it was safe. But yeah, so that was my first ecstasy experience. But yeah, but the drugs and the sex started in '97. It was just for clubbing, and then I think someone invited me to an after party. And one of these after parties, the guys had metal scaffolding. They didn't have the sling there, but they invited all of us back from, I don't know if it was heaven or trade, got some different things out, and everyone was sort of having sex. And this is when we were taking ecstasy. And I used to get prescribed those Caverjet injections back then. So I knew, and I had one in my bag. I used to keep one in my bag just in case I was going to have sex, right? So I went into the loo, injected myself, and I was the only one that was hard at this party. So it was like, you became a big hit when you had a
Mm-hmm.
constant erection. Yeah, so I was just like, oh wow, so people do this. They come back from a club and they say it's an after party, but it's really sort of guys having sex. So I said that to my flatmate. I said, it's my birthday. Why don't we write little things on paper like Nick's after party and give them to hot guys in the club? And we were doing this at trade. And it's just thinking, well, let's see who comes, right? And loads of people came this first time. And it was kind of weird because it was with my flatmate and I never done anything with my flatmate. I think my flatmate went in his room. But yeah, that was the first time I did it. And then it became sort of a habit. And at one point, there was 6 regular guys that used to come over every single weekend. We'd all go clubbing together. They'd come over. And this is when it was gaydar, and you could change the gaydar setting. And I used to say, 6 hot, horny guys want more. And it would go up, and it went up to 18. I think I had
Jesus.
18 people in my flat. Yeah. And someone was racking up the lines, and obviously it got insane. It just got insane.
When did you get to a point where it's like this could be a problem?
Yeah, lots of strange things started happening. I mean, I can remember doing the deed with on this one guy, and he became kind of paranoid, psychotic, and not psychotic, but really, really paranoid. And I was in the other room, and he called 911, and I slammed the phone down. I said, "What have you just done?" And I said, "They're all going to come," and I tidied up the entire flat, put all the gear away, put all the drugs away. And of course, the police came and they came into the flat. I said, "Listen, I just gave him a Valium. He had a panic attack," and the police left. That was the first time. And then one time I was playing nurse to this guy who was for hours, paranoid, and he wanted to go out of the flat. And yeah, it was just too many of those situations. Started getting really scary. The most horrible time was young guy came over. It was June. He started saying some weird things. He said, oh, it's really hot in here. And I said, well, you've come in a jumper and everything. And anyway, he told me to invite someone else over. And he says, oh, he likes to play like we like to play. So this other guy came over and he said, my flatmates were driving me to the station, and we got stopped by the police and searched. All he had on him was a clean pipe and everything. So they let him go. And in my stomach and in my head, it was like, Nick, this is a warning sign. I should always pay attention when I have that gut feeling, right? This is a warning sign. I could never do myself, and I don't really like you mentioning that, what we call it, with the S word. So this guy did the young guy, and then there was another guy that was really kinky. So we started playing, and this young guy was just sitting there like this, almost catatonic on my bed, not really responding. And I thought, that's strange. I never saw someone after just doing that, and just being catatonic, because usually you're up for doing whatever.
Yeah.
So this other guy that came over knew this young guy, and he gave him like 20 pounds, said, oh, just take a taxi home. So I'm playing with this guy, and the phone beeped, and it was the younger guy again. And he said, oh, I want to come back. I'm fine now. And the other guy said, ignore it. So the phone went about 4 or 5 times, and I just ignored it. Then at 2 a.m, bang, bang, bang on my door. And I look out the peephole in the door. There's 8 policemen. I'm like, what the fuck? What? Like, how's the policeman here, right? It's just me and this guy. So I'm freaking out. I had some drugs, and I just didn't know what. I had him in this cash box, and I put him in the kitchen, and I was pacing the flat, and they bashed the door down, and I was naked. They gave me a towel. Yeah, it was really, really scary. They had a warrant. And they said that this guy said that I administered a noxious substance to him. Yeah, an assault. It was basically assault. And I'm like, assault? I didn't even touch him, right? So that was extremely, extremely scary, because they didn't let me talk to the guy in my room, and they took him somewhere. They took him to another police station. It was very nice with them. They searched my flat. They didn't find any. They found a tiny bit of cocaine and a tiny bit of crystal meth. That's all I had. They tried to say I was dealing, and I was like, no, I'm not dealing. I wasn't dealing. And anyway, I said, I'm HIV. Can I take my medicine? And they didn't handcuff me. They just took me down to the station. And it was just very, very scary. And the next day, I had this court-appointed lawyer, and they were taping it. And I was just extremely honest. I told exactly what happened. I don't know how long I was there. They let me go. They said, you'll have to come back. And basically, when I had to go back, they confiscated everything in my flat. They took all the cameras, the computers, my phone, everything. It was devastated, and my door was broken down when I came back to my flat. It was horrific. A month later, when I went back to the police station, he said, we're just going to give you a warning? And I burst out into tears. Absolutely. And he said, listen, mate, that guy that reported you did it to someone else. Right? So we want you to have no contact with him. I said, I don't have any contact with him, whatever. I was just so grateful to get a warning when I had, they could have charged me for Class A drugs, right? Yeah. So grateful. And I was just, I knew then, this was 2012, I knew then I had an issue. And it was only 2013, taking crystal meth and cocaine and methadone, I could never sleep. So friend who was a flight attendant used to bring me sleeping pills, Zopiclone from Germany, and bring me boxes and boxes and boxes. I had on a Thursday night taken one to sleep. I woke up Saturday night. I had taken 275 sleeping pills. And I was still, because Zopiclone's a hypnotic type of a sleeping pill. So you get up, you don't realize it. And I was just taking more and taking more and taking more, right? So I freaked out. I called my sister. She said, "Oh, go to A&E." I said, "Well, I'm fine. I'm I'm awake now."
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So she knew how bad it was, and it was then my best friend that told my sister, who told my parents, which I was devastated. I hated my friend, but he actually saved my life. That was 2013, and I went to my first NA meeting, and then a week or two later, my first Crystal Meth Anonymous meeting. But it took me 2 years to get sober. 2015 is the last time I took a drug.
It's just to add to that's quite a story. Thank you for sharing. I think sometimes some of the stories I get on here is quite light and easygoing. This is a lot. It's quite traumatic story, and I think it's important to share those kind of stories because it does happen, and it could have been a lot worse.
Could have been a lot worse. I mean, they could see when they took a phone out of the bag, because they had a bag full of stuff. And I said to the lawyer, I said, "I have a dentist appointment. Can you cancel my dentist appointment?" She couldn't find the dentist in my phone. It wasn't my phone. I didn't have my glasses. I couldn't see that it wasn't. She had the phone. I couldn't look at the phone. But then when he picked my phone, he saw the messages from the guy, so he knew that he was lying, not me. Right? So he knew I was telling the truth then, but he didn't tell me anything. But I was so grateful to get that warning. 5 years, I think it's on your record for. So it was very traumatic, and I consider myself lucky, because the amount of things I hear, stories in recovery of people passing out in G, and they have no idea what happened to them. That there was a certain amount of people in the flat before they passed out, and then they came back and there's totally different set of people there, and he doesn't know who could have done anything with it. Yeah, I was just like, oh my God, it's just, horrific.
And for me, because I mentioned earlier that we have a connection, we sing with the London Gay Men's Chorus together, and that's where I met you. And when I had my first psychosis, which was in 16, so you were probably like a year in at that point. A couple of days before the psychosis, the chorus had done this project called the Shame Chorus, and you talked so candidly about being in recovery and being sober, and I was already struggling at the time, but I hadn't gotten to the point of rock bottom. That was still kind of like, oh, I can still manage it. And I remember after that first psychosis is not fun because it feels real, absolutely real. And you were the first person I contacted, because I don't even remember, had we talked before then, really, in the course, because the course is big. So
yeah, but you were in my section back then. You were still a 10 or 2.
Yeah.
So
we may have had interactions.
I think we did. I don't think we were friends at that point, but yeah, the Shame Chorus allowed me to express things, because there was a question and answer, and I just felt it was so cathartic to sing about those experiences of growing up gay and the trauma, that I just felt I needed to say that. And me saying that I was an addict in recovery allowed you to come to me, because you knew who to come to, because maybe you didn't know anybody that you could go to.
I didn't know anyone at that point, and I'd engaged with antidote and harm reduction, which is great, to the point where that doesn't work anymore. So it's one of the things, like, when people ask this, like, so what did you do? Well, the chorus saved my life. You saved my life. So that's why we have quite a unique bond, because I don't know where I would have been if you hadn't been kind to me and listened to some of my fucking mad shit. But then again, someone had also listened to you, and that is the beauty of sharing your experiences and supporting other people, even if you don't know them.
Yeah.
So I'm eternally grateful to you. My mom is very grateful for you, because she knows about you. So
I'm grateful to have you in my life too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, we're not going to get all mushy now. It's important to say, because there is this giving it forward.
Paying it forward, yeah.
Paying it forward.
Of course.
Even us two, we are owed a lot for David Stewart. May he rest in peace. And he was just such a, well, he's the man who kind of coined the term Chemsex, and this big issue we have on the gay scene. And it is getting worse. And it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I think I've been very careful with making this comparison, but I think we've gotten to a point where we need to make that comparison. It is very like we now gotten to a point where young men are dying, and this is not 100% the same, but it is our version of the AIDS epidemic.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
It is. It is. And David made those comparisons as well.
yeah.
And he was the first person I went to. And yeah, I was psychotic one time at Club Drug Clinic, yeah, with him. It's it's just a tragedy to see. I can't imagine if I was a young guy now how I would navigate it. I honestly don't know. I should have been dead so many times, Ralph, from different experiences with the drugs. And I'm here for a reason. You're here for a reason, and I'm just so grateful that there is recovery out there. You're managing to do it your way now, which is fantastic.
Mm.
Some people can't do it, and there are places where Dean Street used to advocate harm reduction, or for some people that might work.
Mm.
It's good to know skills about harm reduction, how to maybe do it safely, but then again, I had to just stop because I would have died if I
Mm.
carried on. I would have died, and you know, whatever force, be it God, for me it's God. I'm sober and I'm here and I'm playing it forward all the time because I will continue to go to recovery meetings and share my experience, my strength, my hope there, be of service whenever. And it's service with our group in the chorus as well, LGMCA. And I don't think I mentioned this. In 2013, when that happened, I took a break from the chorus for a year and a half because I was coming to rehearsals high
Mm.
and I couldn't do that to the chorus boys. So I took the break to try to get well. And for me, I said to myself, when I get clean, I can sing again. I can, that was my creative outlet. And to not have that in my using days, was
It,
sad, really.
I hear it a lot. Like my creativity was like stopped for 8 years when I was using. And also when I stopped using, I all of a sudden had to grow up very quickly. From 24 to maybe like 31, 32, there was no personal development because you just stop.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So when you start, this is one of the reasons it's so hard to stop is you just haven't created coping mechanisms. You don't have anything to help you mentally.
Yeah.
You are more or less a child when you stop. And that's why support from like recovery groups and charities and so on are so important.
You have to learn the skills of navigating life sober without the drugs as a crutch. And, that takes some time. For
Mm.
me, working the 12 steps, it helped me immensely to navigate my life.
Mm.
And now, when I want to, now my addiction comes out in other areas.
Mm.
I had put on a lot of weight in COVID. I've lost a lot of that weight now. I'm going back to the gym. For me now, it's about taking care of my body because I'm HIV. I nearly died from AIDS as well after losing my partner. I want to take care of me because what recovery has taught me, as I love myself, I respect myself now. Whereas in my using days, I was just an awful person. I mean, yes, I used to care for the people in my flat, but afterwards, I was a fucking bastard. If someone would ring my bell, I'd slam the phone on them. I'd scream at people in the shops. I was an awful person, and I don't ever want to be that person again.
I couldn't
So
even imagine that because you are like the kindest person I know. So
mm,
you being horrible.
yeah, I was bitchy to people in shops and on the street, and it was awful because you're coming down. And I did that at home as well. And my mother said to me when I made an amend to her, she said, "You were an animal. You were like a pig." She said, "You made a mess in the flat. You were, I was craving sweets, so I ate all the Christmas cookies." I mean, it's just like, yeah.
You become selfish. That's the
Yeah,
thing.
very
Like
selfish.
yeah.
Swearing at my father, that I would never, and I don't recall any of it. Swearing at my father, like, oh my God, Christian family, and I'm behaving like this. It was awful. But I'm grateful now. I have my family back. have my friends back, and there's a lot of people in my life that I care for and care for me, and that's amazing. Part of being
It,
sober.
it is. When you become sober, it's very hard to kind of like see anything in the future. Is there anything that's kind of in sobriety that surprised you? Just like, oh shit, I can do this now. Is
Well,
what do you
yeah,
feel
well,
like some of the gifts from being sober
well,
now?
so in my using days, I wasn't really working. I was qualified reflexologist, but you can't practice holistic healing when you're taking all those sorts of drugs.
No.
The energies don't match, right? So, you know, and when I was on like step 10, my sponsor said, "Oh, the steps are a bridge to normal living." I was just like, I said, I used to be a restaurant manager. I can't imagine what sort of job I'm gonna. And my sponsor said, trust in your higher power. It will happen when the time is right. And for me to have the job that I have now, working as a scientist, I would have never thought that. And I'm 7 years in this role, and I love my job, and I feel like I'm making a difference at work and in my personal life. And you know, I just never could imagine that when I first came in, that I could change, that I could give up the drugs, first of all,
Mm,
start caring for me, loving myself and respecting myself, getting rid of all that guilt and that shame, processing those things, that trauma from childhood. It allowed me to do all that. And that's such a gift. It's such a gift because I used to have to, when I used to be using, and then in the aftermath be thinking about all those things going in my mind, it would lead me to use again because I feel
mm.
so awful about myself. I go to the drugs because it would take away those feelings again, that shame, that guilt, how much I hated myself, the low self-esteem. But today that's not the case. And
Does it I think it's been mentioned before, but I've definitely heard it from other people with HIV, come into maybe survival guilt as well because you're still here and so many other
yeah,
are
I
not.
mean, my partner died. He had full-blown AIDS, covered in carposes. That was 93. It was really traumatic for me.
Mm,
I felt some guilt over that because we argued on holiday, and he thought I was trying to pick someone else up in the Canaries. And yeah, it was awful. But I was there when he died, when he took his last breath. So that was traumatic for me. And then in 96, I had pneumonia twice, and my CD4 count was 20. I was prepared to die. And it was only because my mother came and said, please take, and that's when triple therapy came out, please take the medicine.
mm,
So I'm grateful for my parents for that. And the drugs, a lot of people have long-term consequences for the drugs. I thank God that nothing physical, my heart, everything's okay.
mm.
The only thing, and we sort of touched on this, is I had really worn down teeth from grinding my teeth. They looked awful. So I never used to smile with
I would
like
never say they
that.
looked awful, but
No, but
they
I
were
was in.
definitely
Yeah,
damaged.
they were very damaged.
So he has beautiful white teeth now, and they're very. I've never really seen Nick smile before, so it's like it's almost a little bit like I love your smile, but it's also a bit weird. It's like,
I know, I
what?
know.
He's smiling. Ooh, I don't know.
Yeah,
So it's just, and I think that's one of the things we don't talk a lot about is like when with drug addiction because we grind our teeth so much. I was lucky enough to get out. I've lost one tooth. I'm missing one tooth, one of my chewing teeth. So it's not a front tooth, which is great, but my bottom teeth are like just straight because they've been grinded so much. So, and you still kind of had your teeth, they would just grind down. So you just needed veneers.
yeah. Well, it just what it meant. It was the HIV is really bad for your gums as well.
Mm,
So part of it was HIV over the years, and the grinding led to tooth decay. So I was having more and more pulled. So
mm,
before I had them done again, I had a front tooth pulled, and I was just like, I can't cope with this anymore. I can't. How can I go into Teams meeting at work, looking
mm,
professional, trying to look professional, but I don't want to go on camera. Like I've done presentations, and I so self conscious watching me on camera, like that when everyone in my company looks so healthy. So yeah, I'm grateful. I had the means to be able to do this now, and that's a gift of recovery. We look after our health. We respect ourselves more, and it's all about living your best life, putting down those chems was the first step, doing the work of recovery. And my partner's never done drugs. He doesn't understand why I continue in recovery. And I said, I have to be there because there was people there when I came in. So I will always be there for the new person that comes in. Because as we said, all these young kids that are out there now in the middle of the chemsex world, if they don't hear about the rooms, and I mean, Crystal Meth Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous, they don't hear about it, or Sex Addicts Anonymous, how are they going to know where to get help? There are services out there, but some people are just so caught up in it, and they never make it. They never make it, unfortunately. And in all my years from clubbing days, I've lost probably 25 people now. I used to say it was about 18, and we just lost someone in the rooms recently, and it's just, why does it have to continue to happen? It is like a second AIDS epidemic. It's a chemsex epidemic.
It's, what was it? I saw Play last week, which is still in script form, so it was a reading of the script, and one of the main characters dies of complications with drug taking, and it's all about, like, it's a comedy, by the way. It's just one of those where it does a flip at the end, and it just sent me through the ringer for like 3 days, because the situation was similar enough to what happened with my friend who passed away, who I was supposed to share a flat with. And all of a sudden all this grief came back up, and I had to kind of deal with, because at the time the way I dealt with the grief was to go to Antwerp for Darklands and was on chems for 4 days. That was how I tackled grief. So yes, I've tackled the grief, but maybe I hadn't tackled it enough. But because I was in a place where I can actually manage it and not react and go out and do something stupid, maybe it was the right time to feel that. And I'm quite grateful for that, even if it felt awful, absolutely awful. I had several conversations with people about it last week. But grief is a funny thing, because it
comes in waves.
It comes in waves, and I'm glad you could share the trauma around your partner with us as well, because I think we kind of, there's a tendency to, we forget about those things. It's important to talk about those things, and it did happen.
And it was amazing, and it was proud, that we had that AIDS quilt. I mean, because I hadn't seen it, and when I did look back, it was just the tears. You know what I mean? Just to see everyone up there, and my partner, I was just like, oh wow, and Ian's partner, and it just, and it was so hard to sing the song in the concert as well, because I knew it was behind me, and I was just like, oh my gosh, it was.
Yeah. For context, what Nick is talking about is we did a concert called Proud, and in one section we do a remembrance digital quilt.
It's a digital
where we had different people submit pictures of people who we've lost, and one of them was your partner. And that is, it's important to remember, because as soon as we stop talking about it, then people forget. And I think that's really important when it comes to dealing with chemsex nowadays as well. I saw today that the BBC is going to do a remembrance or an honorary program about the Vivian, who died of ketamine use. And that's all lovely. Absolutely. Celebrate their life. But I hope they also talk seriously about why they died and the detrimental effects that continuous drug use can have. We would still have the Vivian now if they maybe have sought the help. I don't know the circumstances, so it's hard to judge that. But I hope the BBC are clever, and also not in a fear campaign way, because that doesn't work. But they need to have a section where they talk about this, because it affects the LGBTQ plus community so much now. And it's kind of untalked about. And people who are not in that scene kind of deny it a little bit as well. They're like, well, it doesn't affect me. Why do I need to deal with it? But we're coming to the end of the episode. It's been a little bit more deep episode, especially for season final, but it's absolutely been lovely to have you on. And I wanted to have you on to talk because you are such a big part of my recovery, and I am so grateful to you, because I wouldn't be able to do this if I hadn't reached out to you. Oh, love you. Love you too. So it's really important for me to have all sorts of experiences, even if it means giving up the kink and the leather and so on. I would love to see you in leather.
I've got pictures.
Oh, I want to see the pictures. I want to see the pictures.
Clearing out under the bed, there's a whole load of pictures.
Oh my god, you have to send me a picture. I'll use it for the promo. I'll just have a normal picture, and then I'll have a little slide where there's a leather picture of you.
But, in my harness, and yeah.
Oh, I want to see that. I want to see that. But it's been absolutely joy. If we talked about this earlier, because you're not a big presence on socials, so if Nick has said something you really connected with and you really want to get in contact with him, give me a write on the RealClearFetish email or DM me on the Instagram account. I'll put the information at the end, and then I can pass it on to you, because we touched on some quite difficult topics today, and there might be someone who needs to have someone to reach out to. So
yeah, happy to sort of have a conversation with anyone, but for family reasons, on my socials, it's just family, so they don't need to hear this. They know certain things, but there's a whole other side they don't know, and they don't need to know.
And that's why we can do it this way around. What was it when the podcast was nominated for an award this year? I put the voting thing to my mum. My mum has never listened to the podcast. She's aware of the podcast. And she sent it on to my uncle, and my uncle was like, "So what is this about?" And she was "Just vote, just vote on it, just vote on it. If you don't want to learn a lot of things about your nephew, don't listen to the podcast."
Fantastic.
So just to end the podcast, if there was a piece of advice you would give to someone you might have wanted to have someone give to you in your early recovery, what would that be?
If you're stuck in a cycle of chemsex, there is a way out. I mean, I tried psychiatrists, psychologists, group therapy. None of those worked for me. The rooms work for me because there are people like-minded that have been there, they've done that, but we support each other. We reach out, we exchange phone numbers. If someone's having a bad time, if someone feels like they're going to relapse, there's always someone at the end of that phone. So what I'd say is there is a way to get out of it if you're really stuck. And the one thing I want to stress is it's happening in so many different cities, but London's probably the hub of it. Is we're losing too many of young people, and it's the most heartbreaking thing to hear about. And I just pray that if this helped one person, save a life of one person, I'm grateful for that. And hopefully more people can get something out of this, and leave it at that. Thanks, Rob.
You're going to make me cry in a moment. So this was the end of the podcast and the end of the season. It was a very special episode. Tough episode, but sometimes the episodes have to be tough. They can't be all fluffy.
Well, I didn't actually know what I was going to say.
No, but that is the beautiful thing of this podcast, because I only do those standard questions, and we just see what. And
I didn't even ask you what you were going to ask me. You just said you had 4 questions, and I was like, okay, I'll just go with it. I trust Ralph implicitly, so I'll just go with it. Yeah, so I didn't know what stories were going to come out of my head, but
and this is the great thing. But thank you for listening, and thank you for tuning in for this season. I will now have a well-earned break. It won't be too long. I won't be too long, and then I'll come back for season 10. Can you fucking believe it? So I love doing this. I love sharing strength, hope, so on and so forth, and it's so important. So go out and have fun. If you're like Nick and you have to give this up, that's also okay. It's so valid. I was just a stopping mule, and I wasn't going to listen to anyone, so I got back into all this. If you feel like this is a bad thing for your life, and you need to step away from kink or fetish to recover, that is okay. And if you want to revisit it later on, that's also okay. But if you feel like it doesn't fit you anymore, that's also okay. So I'm going to have my break. I'm going to be back in maybe like 3 months' time with a whole set of new guests, and we're coming into season 10. So I'll see you then, and go out and be kinky, have fun, and stay sober and sexy. Bye.
Bye.